Ron Paul states, Biden is running out of Ukraine money. So what is going to happen to Project Ukraine? Authored by Ron Paul via Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity. When the smoke finally clears, he says, President Biden's Ukraine debacle will go down, along with Afghanistan and Iraq, as one of the greatest foreign policy disasters in U.S. history. Hundreds of thousands have been lost on both sides, and in the service of U.S. neocons' long-standing desire to regime change Russia. And let's not forget the $100 billion authorized by Congress to finance the Project Ukraine. With Russia control established in various cities in the East Ukraine, the neocon Ukraine project, like all foreign policy projects before it, looks to be progressing rapidly, but it's going towards failure. It won't stop Biden administration from attempting to extort more money from Americans already teetering on the brink of economic collapse. Let's not forget the battle over the debt limit raging in D.C. right now. The Biden administration's profligate domestic spending is a battleground for Republican lawmakers. However, when it comes to endless spending on Project Ukraine, with a few exceptions, the two parties are in lockstep, at least when looking at Republican Party leadership. One thing is sure, we cannot count on Congress to throw good money after bad. We can count on them to do that. And after all 20 years fighting the Taliban in Afghanistan got us the Taliban in Afghanistan, with a cost of perhaps $3 trillion to that. But the military-industrial complex and the think tanks pushing war and the mainstream media glorifying all this got paid well. And it seems bleak, but this is where we have something to be optimistic about. He says, as I always said, you don't need a majority to change the course of the country. A dedicated minority driven by the principles of liberty can produce incredible results. Mainstream media is in panic over the fact that of the $48 billion appropriated for Ukraine, only $6 billion remains. That won't be enough, though, to sustain Project Ukraine. It'll only last for a few weeks. And with the tide of U.S. public opinion turning overwhelmingly against throwing more money down the corrupt black hole called Ukraine, even unprincipled politicians are going to start listening to the emerging progressive conservative alliance in Congress that's had enough. In Congress, a principled multipolar minority is going to overtake a corrupt, mindless majority, bolstered by the American people, and that's a good thing. Election season is upon us, and although we would prefer to have recruited a majority of progressives and conservative libertarians in Congress, to argue that $100 billion to Ukraine and possible World War III is not a good idea, we must nevertheless be satisfied that political realities are in our favor. The communists talked about the quote-unquote correct correlation of forces, which took into account factors beyond military power to include politics and soft power, quote-unquote. So with that in mind, it seems likely that as the political mood in the U.S. turns against sending endless billions to a corrupt Ukraine with the threat of World War III in the mix, the political animals in D.C. will begin abandoning the sinking ship. With President Biden clearly flailing, and with the surprisingly strong primary challenge of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., we should look for lawmakers to begin abandoning Project Ukraine in droves, and that movement, led by principled conservatives and progressives, will sink forever the neocon Project Ukraine, and thus save us from global nuclear annihilation. And hopefully after this disaster, Americans will turn against neocons one and for all, he says. And this is by Ron Paul from the Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity on Zero Hedge by Tyler Durden. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.